Good morning. I would like to call to order today's meeting of the State of Nevada Board of Examiners for Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. Could I ask the clerk to take the roll, please?
Governor Sisolak.
Here.
Attorney General Ford.
Here.
Secretary of State Sagaski.
I'm here.
Let the record reflect we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Item number 2 is public comment. This is the first time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board, please identify yourself for the record. Comments be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone on the phone? Do we have any written public comment? Okay. No public comment. Do we have a motion, item number 3, for approval of the May 12th, 14th, and 19th minutes?
Move for approval, Barbara.
Okay, we have 2 motions.
We both did it.
Okay. We have 2 motions for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing and hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 4, state vehicle purchases.
Good morning. There's one request for one vehicle on this agenda item. The request is from the Department of Agriculture to purchase one replacement vehicle for $42,118. The vehicle being replaced has met the age and mileage requirements in SAM, and this vehicle is being purchased with federal funds. Are there any questions on this item?
Do we have any questions on item number 4? Do I have a motion on item number 4?
Move approval.
We have a motion on the floor for approval. Any discussion? Hearing seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 5, authorization to contract with the current and/or former state employee.
Item number 5 includes one request to contract with a current employee pursuant to NRS 333.705. This request is from the Athletic Commission to contract with a current employee to provide inspector services at unarmed combat events. This individual is currently employed with the Department of Business and Industry and will provide these services outside his normal work hours. Are there any questions on this item?
Do we have any questions on item number 5? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Move approval.
We have a motion for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 6, request for designation of bad debts.
Item number 6, most state agencies turn their uncollectible debt over to the state controller, who has the authority to request the Board of Examiners write off bad debt that has, in this case, pursuant to NRS 232.605, the Department of Business and Industry Division of Industrial Relations Advisory Council shall request the Board of Examiners to designate such amounts as bad debt that the division determines is impossible or impractical to collect. This item includes one request to designate debts as bad debt under the provisions of NRS 232.605. This request is from the Division of Industrial Relations to designate $1,753,539.55 as bad debt for the purpose of removing these debts from the state's books. The agency has worked with the Controller's Office on debt collection efforts, and there is no impact on the general fund. Are there any questions?
Yeah, do we outsource this to a private collection agency?
In this case, the agency itself, the Division of Industrial Relations, has a process that they follow, and then they go over to the Controller's Office, who has a vendor that they use, a contractor that they use for additional debt collection efforts.
Okay, so what success have we had with that vendor?
I'm going to say that there's been about $100,000 collected in bad debt in the current fiscal year. And I'm ballparking that because I did look at this the other day. I would have to do some more research and get that information for you.
Do we have representation from a controller's office on the phone? They're not in attendance? Okay. Do we have a motion on this one?
Governor, this is Barbara Sagaski, and just in the past, when we've talked about this being on the Board of Examiners before, this is something that sometimes they turn over and sometimes they do it internal. We asked a lot of questions on this, and your staff, again, was very, very good to us, got us the information, so I'm okay with making a motion to approve, but I do want you to know that a lot of it's exhausted because sometimes the people have moved.
Right.
But what we did find out is sometimes they get a new business license, and so we would want to make sure that they hadn't done that, or that they're working under another name.
Okay. Well, if we could follow up with the controller's office, if she could make herself available to answer those questions and provide that information. I think that'd be helpful. Okay, do we have a motion on this item?
Yes, sir. I made a motion and I'll stick with it.
We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 7, request for allocation for recommendation of approval to interim finance committee for allocation amount from the contingency account.
This item includes 3 requests for a positive recommendation to the interim finance committee pursuant to NRS 353.268. The general fund contingency account has an approximate balance of $18 million to cover unanticipated costs for the remainder of the 1921 biennium. If these items are approved, the remaining balance in the account will be approximately $16.4 million. The first request from the Department of Public Safety has been withdrawn. The second request is from the Governor's Office Patient Protection Commission for $241,065 to continue to cover costs for the Patient Protection Commission arising from the passage of Senate Bill 544 of the 2019 legislative session. And the third request is from the Department of Corrections for $1,318,680 to cover non-medical related costs such as increased food costs. The total ask for the Department of Corrections from the contingency account year to date is $8.3 million. Are there any questions on any of these items?
Do we have any questions on item number 7? Do we have a motion?
I move approval.
We have a motion for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. Next item is item number 8, request for allocation disbursements or funds for salary adjustments.
Sections 4, 5, 6, and 7 of Assembly Bill 542 from the 2019 legislative session appropriated salary adjustment funds to the Board of Examiners to cover the 3% cost of living adjustments effective July 1st, 2019, which were not included in agency salary budgets. An agency whose actual salaries exceeded their budgeted amount due to these COLAs are allowed to request salary adjustment dollars from the Board of Examiners. This item requests access to those funds by the Attorney General's Office for the Crime Prevention Account to cover COLAs in the amount of $11,052 in general funds, the Department of Agriculture Nutrition Education Program in the amount of $2,720 in general funds, and the Department of Public Safety Dignitary Protection Detail in the amount of $15,419 in general funds. The total general fund request today is $29,191. The legislature appropriated $30.4 million in general funds for this purpose.
Do we have any questions on item number 8? Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
We have a motion for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 9, approval of proposed leases.
Are there any questions on any of these items?
No, I want to thank you for going over these leases with me in my briefing. I think we just need to be cognizant of the fact that as we're continuing in this downturn of the economy, these prices are coming down, and I would hope that our negotiations reflect that. Questions?
None here.
Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 10, approval of proposed contracts.
There are 55 contracts in agenda item 10 today for approval by the board. Contract number 17 with the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs and Certified Folder Display Services, and contract number 42 with Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Child and Family Services, and the Board of Regents, UNR School of Social Work, have been withdrawn. Are there any questions on any of these items?
I do. I have questions on items number 7, 8, 9, and 10. Do we have a representative from the Treasurer's Office?
We can get them on the line, though.
Okay, I'm going to move to hold items 7, 8, 9, and 10. We'll vote on the rest of them. Can we do that? Okay, do we have a motion on the rest of the items with a hold on 7, 8, 9, and 10 since the Treasurer's Office is not with us?
So moved.
Approval.
A motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes.
Aye.
We'll bring those back at a future meeting when the treasurer can attend. Item number 11, for approval of proposed master service agreements.
There are 5 master service agreements in Agenda Item 11 for approval by the board this morning. Are there any questions on any of these items?
I do not have any questions. Do we have any questions on item number 11? Do we have a motion?
None here. So moved.
We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 12, information item, clerk of the board contracts.
Item number 12, there were 55 contracts under the $50,000 threshold approved by the clerk between April 21st, 2020 and May 18th, 2020. Are there any questions on any of these items?
I do not have any questions. I appreciate it. Do we have any questions on item number 12?
None, Governor.
Okay, that's an information item. Item number 13, information item and reports. Statewide overtime report. This is always a good one.
This report is on overtime and accrued compensatory leave for the third quarter of fiscal year 2020. My staff summarized the report into a 2-page summary, so I won't read all the details, but I will hit a couple of highlights. For the first 9 months of fiscal year 2020, overtime pay and comp leave accounted for a total of approximately $36.86 million, or 4.45% of total pay. This is a slight increase from fiscal year 2019, or about $1.2 million. The Department of Corrections has had the highest amount of overtime for the quarter, and comp time at $3.36 million, or 8.7% of their base pay, followed by the Department of Health and Human Services at $2.9 million, or 3.81% of their base pay. These two agencies accounted for 55.8% of the overtime for the quarter. Year-to-date, the Department of Corrections has incurred $11.5 million in overtime compared to $9 million for the same period last year, or 9.43% of base pay, while HHS has incurred $8.3 million of overtime and comp time, or 3.52% of base pay. Those two agencies account for 53.7% of the overtime and comp time through the first 3 quarters of fiscal year 2020. At the Department of Corrections, overtime and comp decreased by $1 million from the prior quarter, and overtime and comp at the 7 locations on page 2 accounted for 86.9% of the total overtime for the department. By event code, the highest 4 causes on page 2 accounted for 85.85% of the overtime at the department. And finally, at the Department of Health and Human Services, the 4 event codes on the bottom of page 2 accounted for 77.2% of their overtime. Are there any questions on this item?
I do not have any questions on that. The overtime is obviously continues to be high and problematic. Do we have any comments on that item?
None here, Governor.
Not
Okay,
for me, Governor.
thank you. Item number 14, public comment. This is the second time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board on any item, please step forward, identify yourself for the record, and comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We have anyone? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Secretary Sagaski, I know you've got a busy day ahead of you. Best of luck.
I do, thank you.
Best of luck. We have total confidence in you that it'll turn out fine, and again, we'll be a standard for the rest of the country, so thank you for all you're doing for us. Do we have a motion to
Thank you,
adjourn?
Governor. It's adjourned.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.